Carlo Finucci played 3 seasons in the BCHL with the Burnaby Express. His first year, he won a Royal Bank Cup National Championship, and by his third season, he's a BCHL scoring champion with 102 points. From there, he was off to a college career with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and then embarking on a pro career in the ECHL, ultimately ending up in Europe, mostly with the Fife Flyers. I spoke with Carlo following his retirement announcement. First off, Carlo, how are you? Thanks for doing this for me.
I'm very good. It's good to hear a familiar voice, and looking forward to doing this.
Well, first of all, we'll go into your story in a little bit, but just take me through your season so far with the Fife Flyers, and how's it going so far?
We came out of the gates pretty hot. I think we took our first 16 or 15 or 16 of our possible 17, 18 points to start the season, and then picked up a couple injuries and kind of got hit a bit of a rut for about 5 or 6 games, and now we just kind of been playing 500 hockey since then, and we're 36 games into our season of a 60-game season, so just over the halfway point here, and there's a lot of hockey to be played. We're at 4th out of 11 teams, so yeah, it's a pretty tight league, and yeah, we set ourselves up hopefully for a good run in the second half.
You play in the Elite Ice Hockey League, and how competitive is the hockey out there?
It's very competitive. There's 14 imports allowed per team. Most of the teams carry at least a 14. Some carry an extra or two. So with 14 imports, it's mostly a lot of North American players, some European as well. But it's very comparable, I'd say, to high-end ECHL and maybe a little lower-end AHL kind of mix of that.
And you can relate because you played in the ECHL after your time in college up in Alaska and then went over there to Fife.
Yeah, I played a couple of years in the ECHL in Las Vegas, and then went over to Denmark for a season, and I've been in the UK ever since then.
We'll go through your journey in a little bit here, but let's go back to your time with the Burnaby Express and when you first came up with the team in 05-06. Just what do you remember when you were making the jump up to junior hockey and junior A with the Express?
Yeah, it was, looking back at it, it kind of just almost feels like yesterday. It's crazy to think that it was, 12, 13 years ago. So it was an exciting time for, a player growing up, and you start to realize what's maybe available if you, work hard and get yourself onto a junior A team and shoot for, your first goal is obviously a scholarship. And, if you can do well enough to get something like that, you set yourself up for another 4 years and to develop and hopefully, turn that into some kind of pro career. And, you're shooting to obviously play in the NHL, but there's other opportunities out there, playing minor pro or in Europe. So, yeah, it was an exciting time. I had mono going into training camp that year, and, I thought it was going to be tough to make that team. And, Rick gave me a chance once I was healthy and able to start playing again to try and to make that team. And I was able to stick, and yeah.
You mentioned Rick there, and that's Rick Lanz, the head coach of the Express in the 05-06 season. What did he do for you, especially as a young player coming up to the BCHL level?
Just the way he coached the team and handled players, it was very, very pro-like. Obviously, he played in the NHL and played at the highest level, and he just the approach he took to all our practices, all our games, it was just high intensity and demanded a lot out of everyone. And, I think I picked up a lot of good things from that. Obviously, you're a young player still, and, you got a lot of learning to do. And I think playing for him for 2 seasons, although I didn't, maybe put up the numbers that I wanted to or, play the amount of the ice time that I wanted to, I learned to play kind of both ends of the ice and, wasn't playing an offensive role, maybe a little third and fourth line. And I had to play well defensively to earn my minutes and chip in offensively when I could. So I think that's kind of the stuff I really learned from him, and how to kind of just how intense our games was, and how when we lost it was, we probably would win the next game for sure. I don't think we dropped too many in a row that year, and yeah, it was pretty that's kind of what I took from that.
You mentioned it there, was one of the first real lessons that you had to learn making the jump up to junior A's, learning the defensive side of the game in order to be able to play?
Yeah, especially I consider myself and considered myself back then kind of being an offensive minded player, and I think every offensive minded player has to learn both sides of the game. Some do it better than others. If there's only room for about 5 or 6 guys out of 12, forwards on a team to be those offensively skilled guys, and if you're not in that spot, you got to be able to adapt and be able to play both ends of the ice. And if you're playing third, fourth line minutes, you gotta be buzzing when you're playing. And obviously, with the offensive capability, you can chip in when due, but you got to be able to not get scored on. Play those minutes. You're giving those first and second line guys, basically, you're giving them a break when you're out on the ice, and you gotta be a plus player in those situations. If you're getting scored on, then you're not doing your job.
We'll talk about the finish of that first year team in just a moment, but as you were coming up and kind of finding your way through that first year in the BCHL, how soon did you really realize that, wow, this team was really, really something special and it could really do something, which it ultimately did?
Yeah, I think kind of almost until Christmas we didn't have the greatest start to the seasons. We made a bunch of moves. Usually it doesn't happen too often with a team that ends up winning something. Usually they're pretty solid from the beginning, and maybe make a move or two. But there was some big changes throughout that year. Some being trades in that, and some guys getting released, or some guys moving on to the major junior route. So I personally, my spot, I wasn't comfortable with it all year. It was such a deep team, and just the way things kind of happened throughout that year, I found myself being able to stick and play most nights. And it was yeah, like I said, after Christmas, once we really picked up, and we started getting going with the team that we were going to be for the rest of the year. Yeah, it was just get ourselves in a good position for the playoffs. And yeah, that was something else. Yeah, it's tough to put your finger on what exactly it was or when it triggered that it was going to be special. I think you're just caught up in the moment, and yeah, it just happened so quick.
You mentioned some of the moves that Rick Lanz made. He tweaked the defense to bring in the likes of Dave Simoes for an Alan Mazer. He brought in Jeff Orban. He brought in Mark Stanarelli when Paul Crowder went down, and we'll talk about Paul in a little bit. But you were also amongst one of the younger players on that team, and some of the role guys like Max Grassi, or some of the grittier guys and Alex Shangula, or the character guys alongside Stephen Cunningham and Brady Cook. Just from your standpoint, where do you remember some of those real glue guys on that team that really had an underappreciated value to that team, but it really meant a lot inside that room, and what those guys did, even though the points didn't always show up?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're the glue guys. They're maybe not playing the huge minutes every night, but they're doing the little things. Especially back then, I think it was still kind of the older rules with the way the game was played. And we had the guys like Brady Cook and Alex Shangula and those kind of guys that our top end guys weren't going to be messed around with. And even like Dave Simoes. And yeah, we had, looking back, it's pretty crazy how intimidating we probably were as a team with those guys in our lineup. And it allows kind of the smaller, skillful guys to kind of play a little bit bigger. And yeah, those guys were instrumental. Like I said, you might not be playing the big minutes, but our third and fourth line, we had big goals all throughout that run and throughout the season. And that's all you can ask out of your bottom six forwards, is to grind teams down and chip in when they can offensively and do the job every night.
The Fred Page Cup, the BCHL championship, was won on an overtime goal by Tyler McNeely. What are your memories of watching that goal against Penticton?
Yeah, I still kind of remember it. It was Irwin net, I believe. And it was kind of a innocent looking play, and McNeely just flipped his blade over, and the thing ended up in the top corner. And yeah, it was kind of a blur after that. It's crazy how that kind of time goes by, and you can still kind of remember how all the plays happen, especially all the big ones.
Once you got that deep and you won the BCHL championship, you beat Fort McMurray in the Doyle Cup, and then you advanced to the RBC. All the while, obviously, you have a lot of important hockey to play, but did you also take some time to just enjoy and savor what was a magical experience for everyone involved?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it was it was an and it was a grind. I mean, we played almost 100 games, I'd say, that year. And like I said earlier, you're caught up in the moment, and you're just day to day, game by game, and every game was huge. When we lost a game in the playoffs, it was like someone died almost. We learned from it. We took everything out of it, and we made sure that we weren't going to lose the next game. And we turned teams over pretty good all throughout the playoffs. I think the deepest we went was 6 games a couple times, and then get into the RBC there, going out east, and I think we did the Hockey Hall of Fame and went and caught a baseball game, and then you're kind of realizing all that you grinded through there in the playoffs and BCHL and going through the Doyle Cup, and you have a handful of games to win and be a national champion. So I think that's when you really have a chance to soak it all in and look back at what you just accomplished in your own league, and just get yourself ready for those handful of games that you gotta just be the best you can at and give yourself a chance to be a national champion.
What was the emotions like for you on that final weekend as the Express were, literally 2 minutes away from having that run come to an end, down 2-0 to Fort William in the semifinal, come back and tie it, then win it in overtime, and then you just erupt and destroy the Yorkton Terriers 8-2. Just what do you remember about that final weekend?
Yeah, I mean, we dropped our first game, I think, and then we did pretty well throughout the rest of the round robin, and that Fort William game, I still gives me chills thinking about what we did there to come back, being down 2-0 with less than 2 minutes left, and the first goal, I don't think Mark was even supposed to be on the ice for that one. There was a line change mishap, and he just jumped over and to get out there and ended up scoring the goal to get that first one in. And then how many times we kept the puck in that last minute with the goalie pulled and finally scoring, Kyle scoring there. That was I had a front row seat for that. Obviously, I wasn't out there for much of that at the end of the game, but the bench went absolutely crazy. I wish there was a camera on the bench just to see. I was halfway over the boards, I think, and it was unbelievable feeling. And I think once you're going into that overtime, after that happens, it's tough for a team to that just happened to, for them to still come out and win. I knew we were going to score and score early, because all the momentum was on our side. They looked absolutely defeated after that happened, and we were riding a high. After, if we didn't lose in that, we weren't going to be losing in the finals. So that was unbelievable. And then just to turn them over, and basically halfway through the game, you already hockey's a sport where things can happen quickly, and the game could change. But you could tell by halfway through that game we were going to probably win that game. So that was pretty cool.
And then the next year, the Express have a pretty good season. You had 37 points in that year. Had another opportunity, I felt, to go deep again, but injuries kind of derailed that season, and eventually lost in 7 games to Nanaimo. And by that point in time, most of the key players from the RBC Cup team in 06 were gone. And then that really opened the door for you to really become a primetime player with this team. The Express had brought in Brody Reed from Surrey. Cody Campbell came onto the team the next year, and you two developed a line that was one of the best in the BCHL, and you had your best junior career, maybe one of your best seasons ever in hockey. You led the BCHL in scoring, the first player ever in team history to do that. Just what do you remember about your first BCHL scoring championship year in '08.
Yeah, like you said, after a couple of seasons there, and a lot of those, top end guys had moved on, and I was going into my 20-year-old season, and I still hadn't basically achieved what I wanted to do. I achieved, winning a championship and the team aspect of that, but personally, I wanted to, further my career and get myself a scholarship to play NCAA Division One, and I'm going into my last season, and anything could happen. I prepared as hard as I could for that season. I knew that I was going to have a pretty good chance of being one of the go-to guys, and just the way it just from the first game of the season, I think I had 2 or 3 points, and just never looked back from then on in. I think I had almost a 30-game point streak at one point, and our line was yeah, I haven't really had chemistry like that ever since. Brody again came from, I think 10 points a season before, and he ended up scoring 50 goals, and we just had such a chemistry there. We all achieved what we wanted to do, and get ourselves a scholarship, and move on from there. Obviously, we went out in the first round, but I think we could have gone, a double overtime in game 5 or game 7. I can't remember. I think
It was game 5,
the
best of
last game.
5.
Yeah, of a best of 5, right?
Yep,
I
against
think
Victoria.
so.
What about
Sorry, go
Cody
ahead.
Campbell? Everyone knows who followed that team that year how much of a trigger man Brody Reed was, but how smart of a player was Cody Campbell?
Yeah, I mean, he was our center on that line, and he was so smart for a small guy to be a center like that. You got to be pretty crafty, and really good with your stick, and like I said, really smart on both ends of the ice. And he was such a good passer. He would find lanes to get you pucks, and you just had to go to the net. I think me and him had a really good connection there, and basically we just kind of told Brody to. He's had such a good shot that if he could get open and get that shot off, that he had a good chance of it going in. So we had just had such a good dynamic. I would take the face-offs offensively on my backhand. Cody would take it on his backhand on the right side of the ice. It was just we could do everything as a line, and we did a lot of damage that year. We didn't have that secondary scoring, too bad, but yeah, we had a really impressive season, and I'm really proud of what I accomplished that year.
What did your 4 years of college teach you in terms of, obviously from an education standpoint, but also from a hockey standpoint that is probably still paying dividends for you today?
Yeah, I learned a lot in my 4 years there. You're practicing, 4 days a week, playing. You're playing with, guys in their 20s now, and young men, and you learn a lot. You carry so many players, about 5 forward lines and 8 or 9 D and 3 goalies. So there's a lot of competition for your spot. You're not worried about getting traded or that kind of stuff, but you could be out of the lineup for weeks on end if you're not, working hard. Every practice was a battle. It was very, very game-like every practice. I've been hit harder in some of my practices in college than I have in games in pro. So it taught you a lot to be ready every practice and to appreciate when you're in the lineup, that to keep your spot in the lineup. And I've never really been a guy that gets too comfortable or wants to get too comfortable. It may look like it sometimes, but in my head I'm always worried about keeping my spot. And yeah, I think that's one of the things it taught me. And obviously to be on your own and move out of home. And I was living at home for the 3 years I was at junior, so I never had the building aspect of that. And just being on my own and having to learn to cook and take care of myself and do that kind of stuff was it definitely helped me to be who I am now.
Do you feel proud that maybe you were a part of Las Vegas hockey before it became a trendy spot with a National Hockey League team playing with the Vegas Wranglers after your college career?
Yeah, it was. I had a couple friends that were playing there. I went and played. I had 3 games after my senior year when we lost out in playoffs. I went down and played a few games, and I was like, "This is unbelievable! What a city to live in!" And if I can, play play here and give myself a chance to play professionally, and that was my goal, and I gave myself a good audition there. And those handful of games, they were such a deep team that year. They ended up going to the finals that season. They were so deep that I didn't really have a chance of sticking, and obviously I had to go back and finish school as well. So, but yeah, what a unbelievable! They had a great draw when they were an East Coast team, and um, people talking to people in between that time before they got the NHL team, and then announcing it. You know, are they going to have a good fan base and that kind of stuff? And there was that there. We would get 8,000-9,000 to our games sometimes, and there's so many people like the transient city, and so many people from Chicago or Boston area, or big hockey markets that were looking for hockey to watch, and now they have a hometown team there, and I was lucky enough to get down there for a playoff game in the Winnipeg series, and to see Brad Hunt, and yeah, it was pretty crazy to be in that arena. It was like a Vegas show, a hockey game, and a concert all wrapped up in one.
How proud are you to see Brad Hunt still playing and you're still in the NHL, not playing on a regular basis, but on the roster and sticking with the Vegas Golden Knights now in his second year with that team?
Yeah, it just goes to show you don't have to be so highly touted growing up your whole life, or be the big shot everywhere. If you just keep working at it, and doing your thing. Maybe didn't go to a big school after junior, but did great in college at Bemidji, and then boom, he found himself in the pro, and he did great in the American League, and he's found himself NHL deals the last handful of years. And when he's in the lineup, he does a good job. His points are really good. Obviously, he's an offensive defenseman, and when he's in, gets a chance on the power play. But he does a great job, and for him to be able to stick on a team like that with how many defensemen they had picked up through the expansion draft and all that, it just showed. I mean, they could send him down and put him on waivers, but he was there all season and played 40 something games, and yeah, he's been on a team that's gone in the finals 2 years in a row. I thought last year was going to be it, and a cup party in Maple Ridge, but yeah, it was too bad. But it was great to see him, and he invited me out after they had won that playoff series, and I was able to meet some of the guys on the team, so that was pretty cool.
How did the opportunity arise for you to play hockey overseas?
After my 2 years out of college, I've always wanted to go play in Europe, in Italy. I have my Italian passport with my Italian heritage, and um, I wanted to go play in Italy for as long as I wanted to, and that kind of thing. And out of college, the rules had changed where um, with my passport, I was still considered an import, where previously to that, with a passport, you're considered Italian and not classed as an import. So I was like, oh, I'll give North America a shot. You have a good start to a season, you get a call up for a couple games in American League, and that just a couple of games in the American League boosts your salary if you're going to Europe. That extra bit. So I gave that a shot in Vegas, and it was a tough year to come out of because it was a lockout year that year, and kind of bounced around to start the season. But once the lockout was figured out, I was able to finish the year off in Vegas there, and had a good playoff series, and got myself a contract again for the following year. And the rules changed even worse for me in Italy, where the import quota went down from, I believe, 9 imports down to 4, so it was even harder to kind of get in there. So I figured I had a good first year in the East Coast, and I was going to have a better opportunity my second year and play another full season in the coast. And then I just kind of said I got to get over there and start working my way around. And I had an opportunity to go to Denmark which was a great experience. Good hockey. Their junior team had, I think, made the World Juniors for the first time that season. I played with a kid who's 15 that year, and Jonas Romberg, he's playing. And I said this guy's gonna be drafted in the first couple rounds, and he ended up getting drafted in the start of the third round by the Vegas Knights. He plays in the Swedish Elite League now, and played with some good players there. So then, yeah, now I've been in the UK, and it's been a good experience for me and my wife. It's English speaking, obviously, and it's easy to adapt. And yeah, it's been a good experience so far. And I've been 3 years on a team in Europe. So usually guys kind of bounce around. So I've been lucky enough to be on the same team here for a few years.
How does it kind of relax you and maybe at this point in time kind of feel like home playing over in Fife?
Yeah, that's definitely that. You hit the nail on the head with that. It does feel like a second home, and you accumulated so much stuff over the couple years that the apartment we're in is all decked out, and um, so we get treated really well over here. Away from the rink, obviously, with the apartments and cars are unbelievable, and we get treated really well on the on ice part of it as well. So it's a good franchise to play for here, and the league is getting a lot more recognition. Um, Definitely the a couple teams in the last couple of years playing in the Champions League over here have done pretty well, and so it's a good league to be a part of, and I think it's getting better and better every year.
What's the fan support like, and also do they maybe have some unique traditions, or because they can get kind of rowdy when they support their sports teams, don't they?
Yeah, it's definitely that football, I guess I call it, but soccer. Um, Soccer, the way they cheer and are so enthusiastic of how they cheer, and on the other side of that, they can be really really hard on the players, and it's definitely the crowds here are great. That's one thing about playing in this league, where some of the leagues maybe they're not better, but seen as better leagues, but they're playing in front of maybe 300, 400, 500 people, where they're more sponsor based teams, and that's how they make their revenue based off of sponsors. But it's a really ticket based, gate based league here, and we get on average, I'd say about 2,000 to 2,200 on average. I think it seats just under 3 in our rink. It's it's the oldest rink in the UK, so it's definitely an old style rink. But the teams like Nottingham, Belfast, Sheffield, you're looking at 6, 7, 8, thousand fans at those games. So it's still pretty cool to be playing over here and playing in front of that many people. It's definitely gives you that extra jump when you're playing, and you're not just kind of getting by and playing in empty arenas. So it's that's what one thing that many people maybe don't know about the league is how well it's followed, and the teams have thousands and thousands of followers on Twitter and that kind of stuff. So it's definitely very followed, and getting a lot bigger over here. With the Great Britain team is in the Top Flight World Championships this coming spring, so they'll be playing in the top world, which is a pretty unbelievable thing.
Speaking with Carlo Finucci of the Fife Flyers and an Express alumni, I know I'm keeping you a little bit long here, Carlo. Just a couple here more for you. How did Paul Crowder, who, as we mentioned at the start, was your teammate with the 05-06 Express team, he's now with you with the Fife Flyers. He bounced around a little bit playing some professional hockey, and from what I gather, he missed a year of not playing hockey. How did he end up with you there in Fife?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to end up playing with a guy that you played with 12, 13 years ago. And yeah, he played in Cardiff actually last year, which is one of the teams in the league, and didn't really have they had an unbelievable team, and or they're in the Champions League, and they won basically here. It's the big trophy is finishing first in the league. So they finished first last year, and then they ended up winning our playoffs, which is kind of like a Frozen Four format where one plays 8, 2 plays 7 type thing. You play an aggregate weekend and you go on and play in the Final Four, and they won that as well. So, and lost in the finals of the League Cup. So they could have won a treble, and they're such a stacked team that he didn't really have that good of an opportunity to kind of show what he could do. And lucky enough, he's on our side now, and he's leading our team in points, and he's been up there in the league for points. So I play with him now. I didn't play with him 12 years ago, but I'm on his line. He's my centerman now, so we've had some good chemistry, and maybe it's all the practicing we did for a year in Burnaby.
When he played in this league, he was a big, strong centerman, and now that he's a full-grown adult, how big of and dominant of a center is he in that league?
Yeah, he's a great two-way center. He's so strong on his stick. He doesn't look like a big, burly centerman, but he can pick guys' pockets, and he's kind of relentlessly doing that. And he's a pretty big body though, and he can play in the physical side of the game as well, and does really good in the corners. And he's so smart. And for a big guy, we call him the praying mantis. He's like just so shifty and lanky, and the things he can do with the puck and tight around the net for a big guy is impressive. And you forget you don't see that for a dozen years, but you saw the level he played at. So he's doing something right along the way, and it's great to reconnect with him. And now he's got a family and a couple kids. So times have definitely changed over the years from when we were 18, 19, 20 years old.
Final one for you here, Carlo. Another guy that you played with in Burnaby that's also having a pretty good career overseas, I believe in Germany, and that's Tyler McNeely. Do you still keep in touch with him?
Yes, I do, quite a bit. We actually trained together for a handful of years back in Vancouver in our off seasons when we were in college, and our first year or so pro. So we spent 5 days a week together in the off seasons, and I definitely spent a lot of time with him. And I invited him to my wedding this summer. He wasn't able to make it, but he's got his wedding coming up this summer. I'll be going to that, and he's made a great career for himself out of college, getting himself a NHL contract. He didn't get up to the NHL, but to do that, it was pretty impressive. And now he's made a really good career for himself over in Germany, and in a good league there in the DEL too. And it's pretty cool to see guys. A lot of guys ended up going to play, at several levels of, either getting scholarships or playing pro from that team. So it's just goes to show how good of a team we were.
Well, Carlo, this was awesome. I really appreciated really connecting with you, and thank you so much for your time for doing this for me today.
Yeah, it was great. Definitely pretty cool going down memory lane like that. And it was. Thank you very much for reaching out, and it was a pleasure doing this. And hopefully, we can do it again in 10 years down the line or even sooner. So thank you very much.
That's national champion Carlo Finucci and a former professional hockey player. Carlo also has a podcast called GOAT Radio. Check that out as well. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this interview. Please check out other interviews on the channel. If you want more content, please like and subscribe. I'm Eddie Gregory.